now, and we are live. So yeah, hopefully folks can join us. It looks like we had some kind of a technical issue with our Zoom link. Today we'll be putting those on for those of you who are on Facebook. Oh, I see somebody joined us. So it's working for some people, I guess. There is something wrong with Zoom for us today, which you would just think after 11 months of doing this, we would have it, but things happen. Cool. So I will give folks a second longer to get onto the program. Hello, Barbara. It worked for you. So and yeah, it looks like we have people joining us on MoAD's Facebook account. So hello in Facebook. We will be able to interact with you. We won't see your comments directly, but we have someone who's going to bring them over for us. So please, if you're on Facebook, feel free to actively participate with us. And usually while we're waiting for folks to join, we ask people to tell us where they're joining from. So Barbara, if you want to tell us where you're joining us from, and folks on Facebook as well, if you can tell us that, and I'll just give people like another maybe 30 seconds to join us, and then we'll just jump right into today's program. All right, thank you for joining us from East Palo Alto. All right. Cool, I see people coming through on the other end. How's everything going with you, Nate?
Things are going pretty good. I can't.
Good. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. Ever since I learned about your work and your activism, and also you being an educator, I'm excited to have these conversations with you.
Yeah, thank you.
So I do see our number on Facebook going up, and I think people have realized that is the prime way to reach us. Oh, there's a few people in here, so it looks like maybe you can register now and then still join us. Thank you so much today for setting that up for us. So I will just jump right into today's program. And yeah, so welcome to In the Artist Studio. MoAD's physical building has been closed for the last 11 months almost now, but we still wanted to be able to give you your fill of art and artists of the African diaspora. So 2 Wednesdays per month now for 2021. That's a little change that we're doing. Please join us at 1:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We also will be streaming on Facebook every single time. And you can also watch the videos afterwards on Museum of the African Diaspora's Facebook and also the YouTube channel. We also really want this to be an interactive conversation, so we invite our audience members to comment and make comments throughout the entire video, and also ask questions as we go along. In the last 15 minutes of the program, we'll get to those questions. The series was made possible by generous donations by the Westridge Foundation. All of our MoAD members, so your membership money is actually put to work this way, and also our viewers who join us and generously make donations. Thank you so much. I'm going to read a few statements before we jump into today's content. So given this last year, it's really important that, that I state that MoAD stands in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. We honor and mourn the senseless murders of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Tony McDade, and Breonna Taylor's, whose death sits especially heavy on our hearts following the recent verdict. We also mourn so many others who've lost their lives at the hands of police brutality and racial injustice, including those whose names we do not know. We also want to, as a museum that has a global focus, stand united with the global movement to end SARS in Nigeria. And if you're not familiar with SARS, it's the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. Also, we want to acknowledge that even though we're in virtual space, many of us are settlers, immigrants, or descendants of those who were brought forcefully to this continent. Our institutions were founded upon exclusions and erasures of the indigenous peoples whose lands we are located. It's with deep respect that MoAD acknowledges that even in the virtual space, our people, our work, and our network servers are on native lands, and we thank the indigenous people of the Bay Area who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. Today, I'm really excited to be in conversation with Nate Watson. I'm gonna read his bio for y'all. Nate Watson currently lives and works in San Francisco as an artist, designer, and the executive director of the Bayview arts nonprofit Public Glass. His work investigates a range of issues from equity and privilege to materiality and labor, but always with the focus on practical applications and addressing complex social issues. Before pursuing his graduate degree at the California College of the Arts in 2004, Nate received a BA in history from Centre College and was awarded grants from the Rhode Island Foundation and the Rhode Island Council for the Arts for his work concerning immigration and craft. Nate has lectured and taught nationally as a visiting artist at the Massachusetts College of Art, Centre College in Kentucky, UC Fullerton, San Francisco State University, and at conferences addressing issues surrounding arts education, youth programming, and social justice. In 2012, Nate co-founded Light a Spark, a glass-focused arts program that provides rare opportunities and resources for youth in the underserved communities of San Francisco. His visual work, often formed by constructed architectural interventions and poetic imagery, has made the subject of exhibitions at the NOMA Gallery and Refusalon in San Francisco, Post in Los Angeles, and numerous surveys of contemporary artists using glass as an element in their practices. Welcome, Nate. It's so great to be in conversation with you.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah. So how have you been? I mean, I know this last year has been intense for everyone, and not to mention ever since January began.
Yeah. We've had a rough couple of weeks, right? Let alone what's been going on for the last year plus. So I'm okay. We're here, and I remain optimistic and hopeful, energized. It's all the work that we do to build community and to support people. All of that has come back, really to help me find spirit and energize for what's to come. So I'm great. I'm blessed to be here. I'm healthy. Our organization is here. We're surviving. I feel like we're more connected in certain ways. I'm here talking to you.
Yeah.
I've connected with my heroes this past year, and really, it's just, I feel, in the face of all of the things, it feels a little strange to say that we're better.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it.
One of our board members, we just had a meeting on Monday, was kind of talking about, I guess, and I'm gonna get this all kinds of wrong, but that we're kind of in this moment. I guess every single time that there's a pandemic in history and everyone kind of has to go inside, it's kind of like she described it as a tunnel, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And right now it's like we're really working on things. And yeah, you're so right. The connections that have been made over this last year are out of this world. Things that I think people were just too busy prior to us having to stop. And now there's interestingly been more connections made through the technology. And I think also people are transforming the way that they think. It's like we were still kind of going off of the end of, in my opinion, the Industrial Revolution in so many ways, of like work, clock in, clock out. And it's like in that existence, you never get a chance to really stop and reflect.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that that's been working for you. Are you joining us from Public Glass right now? Is that where you're at?
I am. Yeah. I'm here in Bayview. Public Glass is on Armstrong Avenue. It's the nonprofit that I run. It's also sort of the physical headquarters for our art collective, Related Tactics. You know, and I live here. It's my home. It's my home. I don't live at Public Glass, but I live in Bayview. So
in the neighborhood.
In the neighborhood. So you know, it's just the place where I come and every day check in and just try to export as much care and creative energy as possible. So
can you tell us? Can you tell our viewers what Public Glass is, and you know, why is this? You know, not everyone's in San Francisco, so not everyone knows the Bayview district. But you know, why is it significant to have this in the Bayview also?
Sure, happy to. Public Glass is an arts nonprofit focused on glass making, and you know, our mission here is to make the resources here available to everyone. Glass historically is, you know, it's labor intensive, but it's utility intensive, it's material intensive. It tends to be on the spectrum of art mediums more expensive to make, and therefore least accessible. The fact that it's here in Bayview is significant. This is one of the, you know, I'm going to say it's the most underserved neighborhood in the city. This neighborhood's been through a lot, and the fact that we have a resource here that really is not available anywhere else in San Francisco, but it's here in this neighborhood, to me means everything. And, you know, our programs, our programming, our artists are all really focused on exporting this innate quality of glass making, which is that we work together always. We build community that increases our potential. This foundational idea is something that we use for our community programming. We export the spirit and this culture, and therefore these artists, you know, are well equipped to have impact in the neighborhood here. That deserves everything.
That is incredible. So it's not just simply glass and providing glass to you. There's a mission behind, you know, the existence of this organization and a connection. It sounds like you're saying there's a deep connection with the community. You're not just in this underserved neighborhood because the rent is cheap.
Right. Yeah, and I'm not going to say that's not why you know, it probably ended up here, you know, originally for that reason. But over time, it's evolved. This, you know, the organization was founded in '97. I'm going on, you know, I've been here 9 years.
Wow.
And so I wasn't here on the founding level, but I think the organization aspired to have deep roots, and you know, it doesn't matter when that happens. It just matters that we work for it every day. So
that's incredible. And you know, so many organizations have to learn that lesson, you know, and have had to learn the hard way in this last year. So it's great.
Yeah.
You know, that the lesson was learned way before, you know, society was like, oh, we've got to check your values and figure out.
Yeah. I'm glad we weren't just reactionary and responding. You know, but I also understand, you know, I'm in conversation with a lot of organizations that did not get on it, and they weren't prepared. They got caught, and that's okay. You know, I think it's okay to say, I'm sorry, we didn't do what we should have done. Yeah. You know, that's the starting place for a lot of organizations, and you know, as an organization, you know, Public Glass can always say we can do better. You know, just because we're here and we're focused on this work doesn't mean that we did it the best we could. It didn't mean we started on time. It doesn't mean that we're doing everything right. You know, but we're in it, and as long as I'm here, and I think that we have people that are going to carry this for a long time. So I'm really proud. I'm proud to be here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We're gonna get into your art practice, and you know, I think it's important to kind of talk about your work as the executive director of Public Glass, also your work with Related Tactics, because those have such connections to your personal practice. And yes, if people are loving you on Facebook, I love it. So I think you have one of these interesting situations where for so many artists, your artwork is one thing, and how you pay your rent and feed yourself, through your day job is oftentimes something completely different for you. They seem just so well integrated. And you seem like someone, from everything that I've seen and read, about you, and even, having the privilege to meet you earlier this year, or last year, I guess it was at this point. You seem to be someone who is always thinking about social issues and social justice. Is not new for you. However, have you noticed any change in your own art practice, your own thinking over this last year, as we've been in quarantine because of this global health crisis, and then also the crisis of racial inequality, that Black Lives Matter is now, the poster child for? Have you noticed a shift in these last 11 months, I guess, that we've almost been in?
Yeah, and I mean, everything's the same and different, right? There it is. These things, they bubble up from time to time, and it's, I think back to when Obama got elected, and everybody was so excited, and I was excited too. But you go to neighborhoods of color and they're just like, well, watch out. What's the rebound look like? What's the other side of this look like? The folks that have been here and lived a long time and been through things, it was an amazing time, but it also wasn't the end. It was the beginning, and I see this as that it's a moment where more people recognize what we've left undone. And it's a moment to recognize all the work that we have ahead of us. And it's just part of the continual, it's process. It's so much like an art practice or a craft practice. You're never at the beginning or the end. And it's ongoing. And, this even, we can celebrate that we have a new administration, but, we look at history and we know that midterms are around the corner, and we look at what happened before and what we thought we had, but what we lost, but we gained, but we weren't as far back, but we didn't go as far forward as we thought we were going to go. Right. So as an artist, it gives me a lot to think about and a lot to work on, as a person, as an arts administrator. It gives me a lot of really valuable conversations. The more people who are aware and ready to have this conversation, the richer our community becomes. And I have conversations with people that I had always hoped to have conversations with, but now they're happening, because people are ready to talk right now. So I hope this, and right now I'm encouraging everyone to stay with the conversation, to not let this stop, to be thoughtful about, where we can go, but also think about like how, again, what we thought we had before. And how quick, how fleeting that really was. It's persistence. It's an everyday thing. And it's inspiring to have something that means a lot to work for. Like literal lives are at stake. And as artists, we have a role in all of this, which is exciting to me. And it's exciting to me as a teacher to tell students that as artists, they have a role to play and what's going to happen here, and how people see and perceive and understand and remember and see the future. So it's exciting. And I would say that, as part of my art practice, it's just, it's a spark, Yeah.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. I mean, I think so many artists, over this last year have, there's been two kind of tracks for most artists that I've spoken to so far. It's either just like, I took this time to just hunker down and I worked at this, maddening rate that I've never been able to work at before, or the opposite side is like, oh my gosh, I'm just so exhausted from everything, I can't even focus on my work. So it's refreshing to hear, that your work has never stopped. And I mean, I think because everything that you do is so well integrated into each other that, you know, it can't help but to keep feeding, you know, one, you know, education, your role as an educator, feeding into, you know, your activist work and your community change work, as well as your own personal practice. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's I feel really lucky to have you know, it's a little overwhelming to have everything bundled together, but you know, when I'm having a meeting, you know, about a program, that's coalition building, and that loops back around to something, a resource, when it's time to, you know, actually get a project done. So it really does all tie together. I feel lucky.
I love it.
Yeah.
So as an artist, you know, how did you start? What got you into art? And I'm super interested in, you know, what drew you specifically to glass.
Yeah. You know, glass is a visceral experience. It smells, it looks, it hurts, it cuts,
Mm-hmm.
it burns. You know, it's I just felt like, you know, when I walked into a room where this was being done, I couldn't look away. I couldn't walk away. And I think we're all looking for something like that in our lives. And it came along at the perfect time for me. I was in a transition in my life where I had committed myself to one thing, and that was that thing was closing, and I was looking for another commitment. But also it was this community aspect, this idea that, you know, at the moment, you know, I was seeing glass blowing, and that's a group activity. That's not a solitary endeavor. And that really appealed to me. This idea of community, this idea of building a collective skill, this idea that we go in together and the time that we spend is useful for the group, and everybody comes up a little bit every day. Every day that you work with your team, that team gets better. It's not just the individual gets better, everybody gets a little bit better. There's something about that really resonated with me. And, you know, as I committed myself to the craft, I also committed myself to this idea of this community that craft would build. And it was a long time before it all really came back together with clarity, where I could really understand how, you know, committing to understanding a material, committing to being able to make all of the things that you envision, how that might kind of apply itself to the world. You know, a lot of times we have our own language. We have our own, you know, we say, you know, we have words that other people don't use, you know, so it's easy to, you know, get in your own little pocket. Even within the art world, you know, we have our own terms, you know, we have our own ways. And I was really searching for a way to open that up and crack it open and make the things that we do in the studio relevant to the world, and make that world relevant to what happens in the studio. And it took a lot of time, you know.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Can you kind of walk us through, because I'm curious. I've always been fascinated by glass, but you know, where I went to college at, there was not a glass studio. Right. I could play with ceramics. But you know, so it's always been something that I've been interested in, but you know, it just have never had an opportunity that just presented itself to me, you know, really easily without me seeking it out. So was this something that was available to you at the university level? Like, did you just walk past a glass studio and boom, there you go? Or...
Well, first I want to extend an invitation. So anytime you want to come here to Bayview.
Oh, I would love that.
The doors are open, and that's what a lot of people don't realize. The doors are open every day. For everyone. You can come, you can walk in, you can look, you can see. We have a large studio. So even during COVID, we're able, especially now that things are kind of changing up a little bit in the city, the stay-at-home order is lifted. We're not allowing a lot of public in. But generally, you know, when we're not in a pandemic, this is a place where you can walk in the door and just see everything and know everything and learn. You can learn just by being in the space. So
Wow.
you are most welcome. To your other question, I was really lucky. My college had a glass department, and I know how rare. I didn't know it was rare then. I didn't even know we had one. When I got there, I did not go for that. I was looking for somebody. I was just looking. I lost my friend. I was searching around campus. I walked into a building I'd never walked in before. I walked into a room I'd never been in before.
Wow.
And boom, there it was, and there was fire and things were burning, and I didn't know what was being made and what was being destroyed. I couldn't tell. I just knew that this was an active space, and everybody seemed really happy and really excited, and everybody was going in the same direction. There was a singular goal. And everybody was working on the same thing together. I didn't even know who was in charge. I couldn't tell, and I love that, I just, who cares what it is? So yeah, my college at Center College in Kentucky, there was a program, my professor, Stephen Powell, he passed away this past year. So I lost my mentor this last year. And I think that's worth saying. But that's what this year has been, taking on a new place, moving on and recognizing where you come from, but understanding kind of what we carry and what we're capable of. We're not kids anymore.
Yeah.
And the student becomes the teacher.
Becomes the teacher and the mentor.
Eventually. And hopefully before you realize it,
Yeah, exactly. We have kind of before we move on to that, we do have a couple questions from our friend Ron Saunders on Facebook. So Ron is asking, how do kids find out about public glass? Is there something that a kid can just walk into? Yeah,
well, I think the best way is to reach out to us directly. Look at the website. On our website, on the menu bar, there's a thing that says youth. That will give you a direct line to our office. I would say reach out, email. Right now, because of COVID, we're operating all of our programs at a low level or virtual. We're working with schools directly. We're working with certain programs directly. But I would say, we're one of those places where if you call and say you want to come, we're going to say like what time. If you say you want to do this, my next question is, when are you available?
I love it.
This is not a no type of situation. But I do understand that we're not out front in the schools in a way that a lot of other programs might be. We don't have a collaboration with the Y. Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah,
there's fire,
but it's on
very,
us.
Very, very hot fire.
But we make it safe, and I think that once people realize that they know how to negotiate our environment. What other environment is more intimidating than one with flames? Where and our youth who have come through here, they've written college applications and saying, I can blow glass. I walk through this space. I feel comfortable. I know about this stuff. I can do this. What else? What else is there?
Wow.
So I would say reach out to us directly is the main way, and then you're going to see kind of once we open back up, we're going to put more out there. We're working on a public project, a gateway project right now, and so we're definitely soliciting help, but we got to do it slowly and we got to do it safely. Right. So we're not just saying everybody come over. We're saying, hey, go online, check out the Bayview Gateway Project, get on the list. Once you're on the list, we'll reach out to you, tell you when we're doing this project. We're going to set everybody up safely outdoors when we're able to. It looks like the public glass portion of this public project is going to be in April. So hopefully things will be a little bit easier then. I don't think the vaccines are going to be full out, but we may be able to do things distance, and we're working on programs and programming that people are going to be able to continue on in a safe way. So we have we got a lot of things coming. Thank you, Ron. I appreciate that question.
I am gonna jump into your work because I think we all need to see your work, and hopefully this works effectively. I just so you know, I can't see you, but we are still here. And so, and you can see the image, right? The very first.
I can.
as your funnel. Okay, awesome. So yeah, I'm just you know, before we get into this particular piece, I'm just really interested to know, again, you know, aside from the community aspect, for you as an artist, what is there about glass that you find that you can express yourself better through that medium than any other?
You know, glass as a medium takes on a lot of different characteristics. You can see through it. Sometimes it takes up space, sometimes it doesn't. It operates as a portal, a window, a passageway. Sometimes you're on the in, sometimes you're on the out. I think there are a lot of metaphors innate to the material, and even in process, as we're making these things, they reflect a lot of the things that are present in our communities, in our society, in our institutions. And so I think once you do this for long enough, you allow yourself to be more sensitive to all of these little details as they come. And so whether you're planning, whether you're getting your team together, whether you're you know, preparing everyone to make the thing, whether you're in process and going through adversity, whether you have to pivot while you're making the work, because once you start the process, generally it will continue until it's done, and you just have to deal with things as they come. And sometimes you have to accept that it didn't go well. We have to, you know, and it takes practice. It's hard every time. It's difficult. You know, we have glass masters, but I don't. The glass is different. Every time you open the furnace, the glass changes. As it stays at a certain temperature, it changes, we change. So the point at which a different person and a different material come together, that's a different thing. It's not the same as it was the day before, because it's been cooking at 2000 degrees for 24 more hours than it had previously. You know, so you have to be aware of this material as you would a different person that you came across. And,
wow.
And so it's that it never allows you to be arrogant. And, you know, you have to ask the questions and be humble and be invested and be present, just the same as you would if you met someone new. So for me, that's what keeps it really, that's what keeps it fresh. That's what keeps it important. That's why I love the process and I love the material. It also has conceptual applications that other materials don't have. You know, so I think that it's sort of a secret weapon. I don't always use it. Sometimes I write about it. Sometimes I talk about it. Sometimes I use it as inspiration, but it's not always the thing. You know, it's more of the spirit of the thing, and it's a culture that we have, and it's a way of working.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
I love that. You know, how is there you know, outside of that personal experience, is there, you know, that you gained beginning in college, is there anything with the glass itself that speaks to your own personal history?
Oh, my history.
And you know, and I know that that's a big abstract question, maybe.
Yeah, no, you know, I let it soak in. And you know, I think that what's interesting is that it's not my history, and the fact that you know, it's a factory culture. You know, let's start there. Let's deal with the fact that it's expensive and it takes certain resources. Let's talk about the history of factory work and that it's a patriarchy. Let's talk about the patriarchy of the terms used to talk about glass making, right? Let's talk about the studio glass movement in the United States and who was positioned to be the people who had access to this material, and let's talk about the people who were left out. Okay, so when you ask, is my history tied to this? It is now. Yeah. But the history of glass is not mine. But the future may be. And I think that as artists, we're always looking for new. We're looking for original. We're looking for what's next. We're looking for something that we've never seen. And diversity is the key to unlocking what that future and possibility really is. So as one of the few people of color in our field, one of the few that has access to a studio, who's in charge of a studio. I think there may be two of us in the country that run studios. You know, and my, you know, Related Tactics is in the process of you know, kind of crunching the numbers and looking at the statistics and creating visualizations of how few or how many of, you know, I think when we look at these things, it becomes all the more relevant and important that there are those of us in it and thinking about it broadly.
I was gonna save this for the end, but now that you mentioned it, if you don't mind me just like kind of pulling out one of the sides from, you know, that I got from, and sorry that it's a little fuzzy, from Related Tactics, which I haven't met Michelle yet, but I've met Weston before, and he's amazing. So yeah, I mean, just the statistics in glass are wild. I mean, yeah, like you say that you're one of two people of color who runs a glass studio in this country, and you know, it's just, yeah, clearly, I mean, it's definitely not the kind of a field that has opened itself to a diverse audience, and we're definitely going to get to that. I have some questions around that,
I'm sure.
But yeah, and we can get back to this slide as well, but you know, I want to talk about your work as well. So, you know, you've got this first of all, I think one of the things for your work for me is when I see it feels like an easy read, you know, and just the fact that, okay, I see a white funnel type figure sitting on top of a pedestal that is some kind of a sphere that's been cut in, you know, so that it has a flat top on it. But again, you know, no, for me, I think with your work, once I start to break down, well, what do all these things individually mean? Then you start to get into this deeper history and this deeper story. It's almost like you're using the language of minimalism, but to talk about something that is way deeper than minimalism ever, you know, thought to talk about. Can you tell us about this piece?
Yeah, you know, when artists of color use minimalism, it's very seldom minimal. You know, I'll start with that.
You're not just appreciating the forms for their own.
yeah, we have our own way, and we don't have the luxury of overlooking or being simplistic about the details of what's present. And so, you know, this piece, you know, the base is plaster. So it's cast plaster, and the top is polished to try to connect it to the materiality of the glass. And the outside of that glass is sandblasted and painted to matte, basically create a matte finish. You know, the pedestal, I was looking a lot at Fred Wilson's work and his Minding the Museum, and what we raise up and what we allow to sit low. You know, and I was looking at that form in all of its applications, whether it's a model or a diagram for what our universe looks like, what our expanding universe looks like. You know, looking at the utility of a funnel where we can take, you know, we can condense things and put them into a real focus. I was making this while I was thinking also about being a teacher, and what it meant to take the totality of my experiences and try to create a curriculum or a class. You know, I've been alive for 44 years, but I'm teaching. You know, when I'm teaching, it feels so focused. It feels like I'm taking everything that I've ever heard and everything that I've ever known or seen and trying to respond in real time to the curiosity of students and trying to be present for them, you know? And so this funnel to me is just so so relevant as a model for even now. We're talking about a lot of really expansive things, but we're funneling it through a system. It's coming through Zoom or on YouTube, and we're reaching people through their screen, and it's a really focused conversation. So to me, as a metaphor, this forum, it meant a lot. And so this was just me really trying to acknowledge, but also let's talk about the color.
Yeah, that sounds like I was definitely gonna go there with you, and I was like, okay, because I think several of your works contain either Black or white, and I definitely don't want to just be like, well, he's a Black artist, so when he uses white, he must be talking about a racial group and oppression, but
yeah, no, it's working in a craft medium, working in I guess a medium where oftentimes people are making sculpture, they're making art, they're making objects, they're making utilitarian things. I hate to use the word what is that piece about? That is not it's not really so much about a piece, a thing, an object. And I recognize that those things are things that you put on a table and you put on a pedestal. I'm also acknowledging that a lot of the spaces that we have available to us are these institutional galleries and white spaces. The white is neutral and it allows the work to speak, but also I think it speaks to the gatekeepers, and it speaks most oftentimes to the economics of that situation. Because very few people of color control the economies in these economic spaces and the galleries and the curation and the institutions. The idea of it can be kind of compacted into, an architecture. And I use that a lot in my work, whether it's just, like layering the white on the white. Like we have different types of white. These are, it's plaster and it's cast and it's polished on top. And then there's a different texture on the outside of the funnel, and the inside actually will reflect your own image. So it's not mirrored, but it's polished to the extent that it will mirror and you can see yourself in it. And a lot of the work that I make, there's something of a reflection. And you asked originally, why glass? Because I can see myself and I can see to the other side and people can see me. It exposes and it leaves very little. It leaves a lot to the imagination, but it allows us to at least see through and allows us to raise the question, kind of what is in there and why is it in there? And could it be out here? And could we be on the other side of it?
I love that. I would love to see this on a human, size scale. Maybe not that we could fit through the funnel all the way, but as you're describing it, I can just envision this enormous. I don't know if you've thought of doing that, but an enormous glass funnel in the middle of a gallery.
Absolutely.
The ability to see your entire body in that. I love it.
Yeah.
And this piece is beautiful, but now having you explain that, it's even more amazing to me.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it.
And so kind of on the flip side, now you have this piece which is Black and it is glass. It's not, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, it's a black mirror. And it is a black mirror, but it's not, you're not using a traditional mirror with the metal back that reflects. You're kind of have created this own image, and again, human scale with this one.
Yeah, it's it is just a clear pane of glass, and I think when as glassmakers, in the craft mediums, again, our history connects us with vessels. Right? Whether you're in ceramics or glass, you're always looking at the container. It always tracks back a little bit. But I I think it's important to really dig into that and expand that, and to think about how that is relevant, now. And admittedly, I pace. I'm an energetic person. when we're done with this call, I'm probably gonna walk down the street, and I have a lot of energy to get out. So I had a photographer come in to shoot some of the work, and that's just me just walking around.
Oh wow, I love
back
it.
and
I
forth,
love it.
back and forth. And out of all the images, all the pictures that were taken that day, this is the only one that really spoke to what this work was about. It perfectly, that's me, that just, that is a vessel. And the only way to really isolate it or define it as such would be like that I could think of at that moment was to paint the outside of it, to really define it, so that people understood it to be that. And that was me just really like trying to move outside of that piece, the object, the pedestal, the container, and I call this the container. But this was one of the first moments where I realized that this glass and the process and the material could be a lot more. And this is also in this, like, this is an institutional environment, this is, I made this in grad school, and also recognizing, that institution was going to be a lonely experience, to a certain, that one in particular, was going to be one in which I was keenly aware of the numbers.
Yeah.
And it happens again and again and again, and again, I think that, part of my work at Public Glass is it enables me to work on the other side of this, and it's a long-term project, but I don't want students to get into graduate school and feel alone, because they've advanced through the different gatekeepers and move through the different institutions, and all of a sudden you find yourself by moving in theory up, then
Totally
you leave,
alone, right?
You leave your community behind. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's just a crazy idea, and so I think the work needs to be done on the other side.
Wow, that's amazing. And I also want to point out that this piece, now I'm not trying to be funny with this, but predates the Netflix show Black Mirror. They're not connected.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and also,
I think. Yeah. Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I'm also basically wearing the same clothes. So.
Oh really? I love it. I love it. You have a uniform as an artist. Hey, it works.
Yeah, I have a uniform. Somebody in a critique a long time ago said that people generally dress like their work, or they they mimic their work. So I'm working on it.
I need to work on that myself. I look nothing like my work, but I love that idea of thinking about being in the context of grad school, and yes, how the diversity goes way down by the time you get to that level.
Yeah.
And I feel like this piece also just has there's no glass present in this one, right?
No.
Yeah, and but having this portal, having this doorway, I think not, I don't know if I'm directly connecting to what you just said right now, but thinking of access and who has access to what spaces is what I read off of this piece, and I don't know if that was your intention behind it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. It's also has to do with kind of what we build on top of. What are our foundations? What's underneath of us? What's around us? I oftentimes when I'm thinking about work, it's hard for me to make a thing, or to think about a thing, or conceive of a thing without understanding where it's going to go, and how it's going to live. And I knew that I was making work that was going to live within an institutional context. I knew that the walls were going to be of a certain type, made of a certain thing. Not everybody knows what's behind the wall. So this is something to show you what's inside. That frame that sits on top of that white platform is actually the frame that makes the white platform. But there's contrast in that. And so if you want to take that and think about kind of what are the foundations of our existence today, you know, how do we build our country and on what foundations? How do we get to be what we are? There was a lot of free labor. You know, we built it on the backs of other folks. There was a lot of taking of land and utilizing resources that were not negotiated fairly. You know, and that's underneath the surface. And then we cover things to make them feel nice and to be pretty and to also forget, you know, everybody has a stake in forgetting. You know, so, you know, for me, it was this was just truth.
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
You know,
and your decision to stray away from glass as the medium for this, you know, we're going to go into a few pieces now, and I think glass kind of disappears in the rest of the images. So, you know, when, as an artist, when do you make that decision that this is the moment that glass should be the kind of centerpiece, and then another moment where, you know, the glass doesn't see itself into the work at all?
Yeah. You know, sometimes it's a conceptual or material limitation. You know, sometimes it's already given me what I need. So I don't need to drag it along and put it in some place where the glass feels uncomfortable. I can move on, and I'm not tethered by it at all. But I am a product of going into a situation every day where I have to like be present, kind of like the process part that I was talking about earlier. And being aware and understanding that have to be all the way there to come up with something and to be my whole self. So, you know, I think glass in this situation it made the person that made the thing.
Wow. I love that. I love that. I absolutely love that. Yeah. And, you know, can you, we're going to go into another one, but, you know, I'm really interested in like, what, as an artist, what is your primary area of investigation? You know, what is kind of that guiding question or investigation or thing that you're trying to illuminate that kind of drives your creative process?
You know, I think it's a relational, it's about relationships. It's about a physicality. I recognized early on as an artist that my body and who I am, what I look like, is always going to be projected onto the work. And I recognized, I didn't know that until I saw the contrast between how we talked about other artists and other artists' work, and my own. And so it became a tactic or a strategy for me to use. Because what else? You know, I can't not be me. I can't not be myself. I'm of a certain age, of a certain color, of a certain height, of a certain experience. And so, you know, like a work like this, you know, this is really so much about me deconstructing my environment and putting it into parts and pieces that I can control. Because I felt, you know, you feel funneled. You know, sometimes I felt the full weight when I was in school. I felt the full weight of this institution, and you know, like you're in this situation where you want to be successful, but what does that mean, and who do you have to talk to be that? Who gets to decide? You know, and in what spaces does that occur? and what control do you really have and what do you not have? And I had to reckon with all of that. And to me, it was a deconstructing process. And then I needed to put it back together in something that felt okay for me to keep going. Because it was either like, you know, bag it, go home, start over, do something different, or try to handle it. And so this work that we're looking at right now, you know, is me breaking down basically a doorway, the volume or the area of a door space. And it's the piece that we saw previous, that was the frame. This is what would fill that frame.
Just flipping back so folks can see that. Yeah, that's amazing. And so then also that frame is how you cast each of these individual pieces, right?
Yeah. So it's what can you walk through and what is blocking? You know, and it's this idea of building something that might block yourself. You know, and I spent, you know, this is my chance to apologize to everyone that I shared a studio with while I was making these things. But, you know, oftentimes the way that I make work or I respond to issues is through like a therapeutic making. And I had an idea about what the size was, and I started to repeat that process again and again. And again, it goes back to glass making. We make the same things again and again to make sure that our skills, our chops, you know, our abilities are where they need to be able to be versatile. I had to learn a new thing here. I was thinking about kind of what our walls are made of, what our galleries are made of, what's behind the walls, and then who gets to build that institution, and who gets to reorient and reorganize that. And so this is me breaking down these walls of the space that tries to contain, tries to co-opt, tries to tell us what is good. And it's me just investigating visually and physically what we know and what we've come to terms with now over this last year, a couple of years, where, you know, like people who are not people of color are talking about institutional pressures and structural things that, you know, that people just couldn't really quite figure out before, or didn't want to figure out. You know, as an artist, as a maker, you know, this is me just forcing that on myself.
That's incredible. These pieces right now, I'm like, I appreciated them aesthetically initially, you know, going into it, but finding out more about them, I'm like, they're genius. Where do these reside, and do you have any plans to bring them out into the world? Are they in a collection? You know, what's the next step with these?
With those, you know, they don't exist.
Wow.
You know, they're an image, and I think that, you know, it was everything when they were there. These pieces were there for me when I needed them.
Got it.
If that makes sense.
I just think, you know, kind of in this moment right now, I think they speak a little louder, you know, even I'm sure they did at that time, but now, you know, as you know, as we start this conversation, we're in this place where institutions are reevaluating themselves. They're asking themselves the tough questions of who has access, who does not, who is, you know, I think even within the museum context, who is your first floor. I'm thinking about the context of MoAD, but usually, you know, you're in most museums, your ground level or front of house staff, your security guards, your visitor services people, what do they look like? Who do the people who sit in the top positions, what do they look like? Who has the power, the control, the access? You know, the questions that we're not only within an institution we're asking ourselves, but I think hopefully now the entire country is asking itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny how these things have become more or less relevant depending on what people are thinking about or considering at the moment. But I think, you know, I think this serves as a memory or proof that these things have always been.
Yeah.
And they will be. and we get to decide to what degree we acknowledge them and confront them and call them out, and what is our commitment to deciding what kind of energy we're going to put into making change. These are all choices. These are choices, you know.
Yeah, absolutely correct.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we've got some other images, and you are someone who works in whatever medium makes the most
Mm-hmm.
sense for you, to successfully pull off a certain project. So,
Mm-hmm.
Before we start going into the performance piece here, are you someone who first thinks about the medium and then that drives the creative process, or do you have the concept and then the medium emerges from that concept?
I think it's just it is what feels most pressing and what feels most important and what is really like got me at the moment. I do think through materiality, but my ideas about what that means I don't think I have too many boundaries about what material or what's at my disposal for getting that idea across. So I think it's the moment, and I think that I consider my position as director of public glass to be an artistic position. It's a creative position. The solutions and ideas and programs and things that we come up with are creative solutions, and they're formed around this art making process. My work in glass, whether it's for a restaurant or a gallery, these are the same. It's not that different. And this moment where somebody asked me to come and do a technical demonstration at a conference, this was no different. It was a moment, it was a context, it was a situation. And I think that, again, like I said, every time you go open the furnace, the glass might be different. So you have to see what it's going to do before you know what you're going to do. There's a risk-taking component to stepping out on that ledge. And I think that art making is very akin to performance. And this was that, where I got to bring them together, where people thought that they were coming to see what Nate was going to make. And what we make is a recognition of what is going on, so why, and this is a glass conference.
Oh, wow. So you just kind of spun it on its head, huh?
A little bit. I mean, I knew, to a degree we can anticipate what's going to happen. So that graph that you showed about the whiteness of glass, right? That's reflected in this group, or this gathering of glassmakers from all over the world. And people come together generally to see these techniques and these ideas come to life, right? You can see these people that you've heard about, or, and so when they asked me to do this, I was suspicious, because again, I'm one of very few people of color making glass, right? I'm also, because I work in universities and nonprofits and all of these things, I'm well aware that the possibility that I could be tokenized is there. Yeah. It's always there. Like, oh, Nate, come do this committee, jump on this panel, do this thing, okay. So when you write your grants, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be part of your statistical, report, right? So what's in it for me? What's in it for us? What can I do differently? If I'm just going to jump up there and do what everybody else did, then there's no point in me being different. And we all know I am a little bit. And so this was an experiment for me, and it was worth the risk. And it was I think this was 2015.
Okay.
And the conversation that we're having that compelled people to raise their hands and close their fists was about Black and brown people being killed by the police. So this is 2015.
Wow.
And I asked,
Here we are again.
yeah, like asking the craft community, what is their role in this? Like, why are we here? Like, if we're not talking about this, then what are we talking about? Like, do you want to see me like make a thing? And to me, and I'm just gonna say it, like sometimes, somebody wants me to just make a thing, to show you how to make a thing so you can get excited about that thing I'm making. It felt a little bit like a song and dance, I'm not gonna get up there and do that. Or if I do, then you're gonna understand a little bit about what keeps me up at night.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, this is community, right? These are friends, and we're supposed to be friends. These are my people, right? And I need to know what concerns them, and they need to know what concerns me. And so this was an exercise in equity and trying to create that and some sort of like understanding. And if there's one thing that I could do on that platform in this moment, was to try to bridge that a little bit, and not let them walk away thinking that all we had was how to make a bubble.
Yeah. I love it. I'm gonna actually stop our share right now, because for me, that I think pulls into well, first of all, I want to say for our audience, we do have space right now for you to ask your questions. So please, if you're on Facebook, write your questions into the comments and we will get to them. And then if you are here on Zoom with us, go ahead and also put your questions into the chat. We would love to hear from you. But kind of that image for me then brings me into the question of your recent article, your critique of the glass field and the work that's needed for it to diversify. And that article was submitted to the Glass Art Society, right? And now when someone does a Google search of your name, we get like 5 references to this thing. So it's now you've kind of become the godfather of diversifying the glass field right now.
Oh man.
I don't know if anyone Google searches you, it's just like all these things come, and it's I think clearly if the image that we just saw was from 2015, this isn't new for you, right. But now it seems like ears are more open and receptive to hearing what you've been saying all along. And so can you talk about that work and kind of this personal mission of yours?
Yeah. Well, that work from 2015, when we did that performance, or we had that moment where people acknowledged that there were things in this world that they felt strongly about, but didn't feel like they could really control or do anything about it, but I needed the folks around me. I needed to know that they acknowledged the pain and the hurt that was happening within our communities. And a lot of times we align creative communities with progressive communities, with communities that see a little bit beyond themselves. That's not always the case. Oftentimes it is. But I think that we have to hold each other accountable as well, to say, like, you're my friend. How do you love me? How do you support me? If you care about me, like, do you give me a little clap when I do something good? Do you support me in my work? Or do you help amplify this message that keeps me alive, literally? I had a moment where I was walking across the field in San Jose, and like glass equipment looks dangerous. I've got these things, like my pipes that I carry to make glass. It looks like I'm carrying rifles across a field.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And there was a moment, and again, like, Black folks were getting killed just for people projecting their own fears. And walking to this demo, I had to walk past a playground with these big bags. And again, I'm looking around, I'm looking for other folks, and I'm the only one. and I needed to have that conversation with the people around me so that they understood what I was literally like, how my life is in jeopardy in ways that theirs aren't. And so if they ask me to come do this thing, do they really understand, like what it means to be the one? Yeah. What was the question?
That's awesome. I love.
Yeah.
And then today also shared the article, so for folks can read more on that as well. And we have a few minutes left, and so I don't know if you want to talk about what you're working on right now, and then also what's coming up next for you.
A lot. I think most of my work right now, that I'm like this past year, my work with Related Tactics Collective, we started the year and we're like, well, what are we gonna do? Like we don't have much going on. And
back in January.
Yeah. Oh man, and it was quite the year. And that Whiteness of Glass article that was written, that was really my collective coming together to support me. And getting back to that article, I did ask some questions. It was when everybody was, all institutions were basically saying all the things that they had done, but not admitting or talking about the things that they had not done. And what happened, and this is where I got a little derailed before, is they were taking images of that 2015 moment, of people kind of holding their fists up and saying, hey, like, we know that there are things going on. We know that brown people are being killed for no good reason. Whereas like, if that, similar situation happened to us, this would not be the case. It was an acknowledgement that came and went in 2015, but last year, all of a sudden those images popped back out. There were organizations within our Glass community that decided that it was okay to start to prop those images back up and use my image that they may or may not have felt compelled to use before. But this was a moment where they're like, oh, we know a Black person. Oh, there's one, Nate Watson, he makes glass. He's in our community. There's another guy, there are 3 or 4 or 5. And all of a sudden it made it look like there were 100, but there were really 5 or 6. And really that I kind of had to call them out. But I think a lot of us are working collectively or working in collectives now to support one another, because it's easy to dismiss one, but it's very difficult to take on a group when we're saying, hey, no, this is how it goes. So Michelle and Weston have always supported me in my work, and a lot of times when we meet every week, sometimes twice a week, and we talk about what's happened. And when I brought this up, as allies, as friends, as my community, as my art collective, they really came together to try to offer support to me in this moment, and figure out how to respond.
That's awesome.
And then when that opportunity came through the Corning Museum, they offered us, like, very quickly, they said, hey, like, what do you want to do? What do you want to say? Like, this is crazy. We agree. It's odd that these organizations are propping your image up. And in this moment, if you have something to say, we're going to give you a forum to say it.
Wow.
And my collective backed me 100%. And they were like, all right, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to say. And we did a project called No Matter the Intentions. And it was really a guide, a call out and a guide for institutions to understand how sometimes their gestures in relationship to how they're going to create diversity, actually, it puts us back in that situation. It puts us back in that cycle. Okay, I'm going to be your diversity director, but I can't be your director.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that they can say, "Oh, look at what we're doing right now."
Yeah. I'm going to invite you to do a show, but I'm going to tell you I'm going to give you the parameters and tell you what we can and cannot, and then we're going to use that to fundraise, but we're not going to really support the continuation of this type of programming. So Michelle and Weston have really like isolated a lot of these issues, pulled them up, distilled them down, and then we fed those back through the system, which that the craft community consumes, so that they could understand a little bit about like these things that they like, reactionary things that they do generally to say, okay, we're doing a lot. That actually they need to understand how that feels for us, and understand that we recognize that they're bringing us in for these moments, but they're not willing to offer us like fully funded year-round, all the time positions, so that they don't find themselves in these positions anyway.
That is awesome. And I know it's really hard to project right now. No one knows when the world is opening back up. And we'll be able to gather safely. Who knows when that'll happen. But are there any potential shows that you have coming up next that you can tell us about?
Yeah, we have something with the Wexner Museum. There's a project with Related Tactics. I think that's going to come out in February. We're in resident right now at Kala.
Oh, nice.
So
no way.
Super.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Really excited about that. And it's going to be a logistical excursion. Michelle's in DC, Weston is in Hawaii right now, but he'll be back soon. So I'm really, really excited about that project. And we got this really great grant that I can't talk about yet because it hasn't been announced. But I'm sure everyone will hear about it within the next month. But we're gonna really expand on some previous investigations and really pull together a larger coalition of folks of color, and we're gonna kind of reclaim space, and we're gonna write our own history and narrative, and
that is amazing. So how can folks, if we want to stay informed, what's the best way to do that? Is there a website that we should be looking at, or a social media page that we should be subscribing to?
All right, so I'm going to give my collective more work. I'm going to say that out of all of us, I'm the worst. I have a website, I have an Instagram, I have 2 posts ever. But and I'm sorry, and you did a lot of work to be able to talk to me, because I know there's not a lot. Follow Related Tactics on Instagram. Michelle and Weston do a really wonderful job of tracking our projects and letting people know what's happening.
And would that just be like at Related Tactics? Is that okay? Perfect.
Yeah. I think that'll be the thing. That'll probably be the best way. Don't wait for me to post.
You're busy. Seeing everything that you do, I don't think anyone would not totally understand.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Nate, this has been an amazing conversation. I feel like I've just learned so much more about you than before, and I have so much respect for you and everything that you do, as an artist, and also for the community. It's really refreshing to have someone on here that does everything that you do. So I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for the time and space, and for all that you guys do as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you all to all of our audience members. This conversation, if you joined us a little later, immediately after this conversation, will be available on our Facebook account. And then you can look at towards the end of the week to see it on YouTube, and please share it far and wide. We will see everyone soon. The next conversation is on February 10th. We will have Chanel Stone. All right, Nate. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, have a beautiful one.
All right, take care. Thank you.